Let's continue now with our study of the select statement in SQL. As we mentioned, it's the most commonly used SQL statement, also the most complex. That's why we're spending so much time on it. So now that we are continuing with the select statement, we will see how to use dates in retrieving information. And dates arise very often in all kinds of databases, whether it's customer or student or any kind of databases, because business operations involve time and involve dates. Date stamps of various kinds. So dates are stored in various ways in databases, and they're involved in retrieval. So the table that we are going to use to show you these examples is the project table. So I'm going to open the project table in the database example that we have been using. And you can see for every project, there is a project ID, there is a project name, the department where the project is being executed, the maximum number of hours allocated to the project, and its start and end date. So basically there are dates associated with a project, and we are going to see how to use dates to do retrieval. So let me get my run command back so that I'm set up for my query. So I go back to my PowerPoint, and here's the table that we will be using. So the unfortunate thing is in SQL, dates are not standard, meaning every SQL implementation, say Microsoft Access, the SQL that goes with that, the SQL that goes with SQL Server, the SQL that goes with Oracle, all of them have slightly different implementation of dates, meaning the formats in which you express the dates are somewhat different. But the basic structure of the select statement that would use dates is very, very similar across all of the implementations. So it's just a little bit of a botheration in the format that you have to worry about. So the example select statement that we are using is the first one here. So if you translate that to English, if you look at the three different clauses, basically what we are telling Access is go to the project table. That's what the from says. And then we are saying slice that table horizontally, pull out all the rows where the start date is between the 1st of June and 1st of August. And once you have done that, cut it vertically, cut these three columns out vertically. So that's what we are telling Microsoft Access. And the reserved word between you have seen before, where we had extracted assignments in which employees had worked between 50 and 60 hours. So the reserved word between can be used in many different contexts. Here we are using the word between to express a range of dates. Okay, so in the previous example we had used between to express a range of hours, but the basic idea is the same. So let me take this SQL query, copy, and here we go, paste it and run it. See, here we have there's only apparently one project that falls between 1st of June, whose start date falls between 1st of June and 1st of August. And that's this particular project in the finance department. Okay, so you've seen how dates work. And let me go back to the SQL view and point out one thing here. So the difference is here in Access, the dates were expressed by slashes. So month, day and year surrounded by hash marks and separated by slash marks. Okay, now if you did the same thing in Oracle, if you executed the same query in Oracle, you would need to specify the date somewhat differently. You would say day, month and year separated by dashes and surrounded by quotes. So the format is different, but you can see the basic structure of the select statement is exactly the same as before. Okay, so it's only the formatting mainly in terms of dates that you have to keep track of. Okay, all right, let's moving on. Another thing that you can do when you retrieve information using select is you can sort your results. Okay, so let's look at this first command. What we are telling Microsoft Access is go to the employee table, retrieve all the records. Select star means select all the columns. And then we are saying order by last name ASC. So anytime you want to do a sort of your results, you have to use the clause order by. All right. And then you have to give it the column by which you want to sort. And then you have to specify whether it's ascending or descending. ASC is ascending, DESC is descending. And by default, Microsoft Access does an ascending sort. Okay. So let's start with the default. I'm going to copy this select statement over. copy, go over to access. Oh, let me delete this. And paste. All right, so now I run this. So you can see that the records are sorted by last name. Abernathy is first and Stewart is last. So the records have been sorted by last name. Okay, so all that order by did was sort the results. Let's close this. And oh, I deleted the query also. I need to get back my run command. Let me get the SQL view back and go back to the PowerPoint. Now I will use the non-default. So I'll say sort in descending order, all right, instead of ascending order. So same query, just that DESC instead of ASC. So let's copy this over to Access, paste and run it. So here you can see the same results. This time it is sorted in descending order. Okay. All right. Let's go back to the SQL view and let's say I put department. So I list two columns. I say order by department, comma, last name, and then DESC. So I think you can take a guess as to what Access would do. It would take the resulting rows and it would first sort it by department in descending order, and then for each department it would sort by last name in descending order. Okay, so it's just a sort within a sort. So let's run this. So you can see that it did accounting, okay, first, and then administration, finance, and then within each it is sorting by last name in the descending order. Okay, so you can see how the nested sorting worked. Okay, so here's getting back to the SQL view. Let me delete this select statement to prepare us for the next one. So you've seen how to order by, how to sort your results. Now, the next feature of the select statement that we will show you is how to do computations using the select statement, because sometimes when you do extraction, you want to do averages, maximums, minimums, counts, various kinds of basic operations. You need, not very sophisticated. You can't do regression, for example, using a select statement, but there are basic arithmetic operations that you can do using SQL, and there are some built-in functions that SQL provides for that. Here are 5 of them: count, min, max, sum, average. You should be familiar with these built-in functions from Excel, for example. You know how these things work in Excel, and that's how they work over here with the select statement as well. And so let me show you how these built-in functions are used as part of the select statement. So here's a very simple operation. A select statement says select count star from employee. Okay, so the way to imagine, to visualize how this select statement works is just imagine that the count operation is not there. Okay, so suppose I didn't have the count operation and all you had was select star from employee. What that, I think you know by now, what that would do is it would simply give you all the rows in the employee table, because star lists all the columns, isn't it? So if you say select star from employee, it just lists all the rows in the employee table. Now when I say count star, I'm saying after you have done the retrieval, count how many rows there are. Okay, count how many rows there are. Okay, so the result, the answer to this select statement is not a row, not a column. It's a number which tells you how many rows there are in that table. And since you know by now that the employee table, every employee must be unique, it tells you how many employees there are in the table, because star includes the primary key. Therefore, every row must be unique, and it tells you how many employees there are in this particular company. So let me copy this over here and run it. So we have 20 employees in the company, okay? But notice the heading, it says expression 1000. This is a title for the result that Access has cooked up by itself. If you don't like that, obviously most of us will not like that particular heading for that column. So we could say select count as total employees. So we are giving the result a name. We're giving a name to that column. So you are saying do the count of the employees, and when you give me the answer, give the heading of tot emp to that particular result. So it's to make it more meaningful. Let me run this. So you can see it's the same answer 20, but right now the column heading is tot emp instead of that weird name that Access had cooked up for itself. Okay. So you've seen how to use the count built-in function. Let's see some others. So suppose I want to know the number of employees only in the finance department. Okay. So I think you can see now how this is being spliced together. When we use the where department equals finance, this would only pull out the rows that correspond to the finance department. So you have cut the table horizontally. From that, we count how many records there are, and that tells us how many employees there are in the finance table. Okay. And to make it more meaningful, I might say as total finance. So to remind me that this number is the total number of employees in the finance department. Okay. So let me copy this over. Here we are. Oh, I need to fix the quotes. I'll put some spaces to make this meaningful. And I run it. So you can see that the heading has been put as total finance, and there are 2 employees in the finance department. So you've seen how the count function works. Let me delete this statement and prepare for the next one. So in one statement, I'm going to show you 3 different built-in functions. So let's say from the assignment table. So here is let me show you the assignment table. So here's the assignment table. You have project ID, employee number, and hours worked. So you have a long list of hours worked by each employee on different projects. So I want to know the average number of hours worked across all projects by all employees, the minimum, maximum, those kinds of things. Okay. So it's the assignment table that I'm working with here now. Let me close it and get my run command back. So I'm all set now. Let me go back to the PowerPoint, and here is the select statement. You can see it says from assignment. Okay, so we are pulling out the data, we're retrieving data from one table, which is the assignment table. But notice the built-in functions that we are using. We're saying minimum of hours worked, maximum of hours worked, average of hours worked, and for each of those computations, we are giving a nice heading to the columns. Okay, so we're saying min hours worked, max hours worked, average hours worked, so that the numbers are meaningful. All right. So let me copy this over. Copy. Paste, and I think I have my semicolon. Okay, so let's run this. So there you are. You have the 3 computations. So what we're saying is for across all projects and all employees, the minimum number of hours worked is 20 hours, the maximum number of hours worked is 75, and the average hours worked is 48.5. This is across the entire table. So we are averaging, getting the maximum and the minimum across the entire table. Okay. Now let's pose a slightly different question. So again, going back to the previous question, find the minimum, maximum, and an average hours worked for all assignments. That's what we were. So this last example that we are going to show you is how to do subtotals. Okay, suppose we want the total hours worked for each project. All right, so let me go back to the example here. I will open the assignment table. So I don't want the average and the maximum across all this column. I want to know the total number of hours worked for each project. Remember, each project is budgeted a certain number of hours. So I want to know if I've exceeded those budgeted number of hours. So let's say all I want to know is project 1200, project 1300. What is the total number of hours worked? So basically, I don't want the total across all these hours. I want the total broken down by project. So I want subtotals. Okay. So here is how we do it. We do that by using the group by clause. Okay. So here is the command. So let me break down the command here. So we'll do it in a little, let me break it down in two pieces here. So look at this portion only for now. Okay, so we say select project ID, sum of hours worked. So total hours worked, and I'm giving it a nice column title, sum hours worked, just so that the number is meaningful from the table assignment. And we are saying group by project ID. This is the clause that creates your subtotals. So we are saying calculate the hours worked for each project separately. So the way that works is, what Access will do, it will sort that entire table by project ID, and then for every project ID it will compute the hours worked. So let me just select that statement. So notice that this last clause having, I didn't pick it up. So the group by clause is what does the subtotals for you. So let me copy this over. Okay, let me close this table, and for query 1 let me get the run command back. Okay, so I'm pasting my SQL statement, the select statement here. So select project ID, sum of hours worked. So this is the built-in function as sum HW. This is just a heading that I'm giving from the table assignment. It's this clause, group by project ID, that does the subtotals for me. So I'm going to run it now. You notice that for each project I now get the total hours worked for each project. So now I know that I have worked a total of 165 hours for project 1300. I have worked 280 hours for 1400, and so forth. So instead of getting one total across all projects, I now have broken it down by project. Okay. Now there is a last little piece of refinement that you can do here, and that is the having clause. So suppose after I've done my grouping, I only want to know those projects where the total hours is greater than 200. So those are projects that too many hours have been spent. Maybe I'm exceeding my budget. So this is sort of an exception report. So I want to know only those projects where the total hours worked is greater than 200. So first I do my group by, that gives me the subtotals for every project. And then I'm telling Access, don't stop there. Just give me those projects where the total, the sum of hours worked is greater than 200. So coming back to my Access example, if I run this particular query, instead of getting all these projects, I would only get the projects where the total hours is more than 200. So I should really get just four projects listed: 1000, 1100, 1400, and 1500. Those are the only projects where the total hours worked is more than 200. So once I run my query over here, I will just let me just copy that last line, last clause, having greater than 200. So I copy it over here, having some hours worked greater than 200. And now when I run it, you see only those 4 projects show up. Only the ones where the total hours worked is more than 200. Okay, coming back to our tutorial here on Select, I've broken it down into several pieces just to keep the lengths manageable. we will continue with these tutorials and more features of the select statement in a subsequent tutorial.